Rob had provided well for his family. Their colonial home in Wellesley sat on 2 acres of manicured grounds, the kind that made realtors whisper, estate, instead of house. He ensured Carol never had to worry about bills or the future. She ran the household with precision, the center of every holiday, every birthday, her warmth smoothing over Rob's bluntness. Their life, from the outside, was enviable. But beneath that picture-perfect surface, cracks had begun to show. Rob often worked late, sometimes by necessity, other times by preference. He found comfort in blueprints and schedules more than in dinner conversation. Carol, once content to fill her days with charity work and book clubs, began to seem restless. The kids, grown now, only visited on weekends or holidays. Still, Rob believed in routine. Saturday mornings were always for family brunch, no matter how busy his week. He'd sit at the head of the table, coffee in hand, scanning the faces of those he loved most. Even as Emma and David exchanged inside jokes and Carol refilled everyone's plates, Rob kept watch, alert to the shifting winds of his family's moods. He'd built everything on trust and loyalty. Surely, nothing could threaten that. Or so he thought. "Oh, that reminds me," Carol interrupted. "Tomorrow is my birthday party." Rob blinked, startled. "Your birthday party?" he repeated, his voice rough. He hadn't forgotten, he never did, but a party was the last thing on his mind. Carol smiled, but her eyes flickered with impatience. "Yes, we talked about it, remember? I sent out invitations weeks ago. It'll be at the house, just a few friends and some family. David and Emma will be there. Everyone's excited, and it might lift your spirits too." He studied her, seeing how she avoided his gaze and kept smoothing the skirt of her red dress. "I'll try to be there," he said, hospital willing. She reached over and squeezed his hand, her grip cool and brief. "We'll bring the party to you if we have to. Everyone wants to see you recover. Don't work yourself up over anything tonight. We just want you to rest." After she left, Rob stared at the ceiling, the antiseptic air pressing in on him. He couldn't shake the uneasy feeling her visit had left behind. The birthday party felt less like a celebration and more like a distraction, one he didn't quite understand. He closed his eyes, focusing on the monitor's steady beeping. The world outside his fortress was shifting, and for the first time in years, Rob wasn't sure he could control what happened next. "I know it's not true," Rob replied, his voice steady. "But I need you to do this, just for a little while. If my wife asks, or if anyone else calls pretending to be family, I want them to think the worst. Can you do that for me, Doctor?" Dr. Hayes hesitated, then gave him a measured nod. "I'll make a note in the file and inform the staff to follow your instructions. But, Mr. Sullivan, if at any point you change your mind, please let us know." "Thank you, Doctor," Rob said. Relief flooded him as she left the room, closing the door softly behind her. He lay back against the pillows, exhaustion settling through his aching body. The betrayal cut deeper than anything he'd faced in business. Carol's threat, her icy words, and now her apparent interest in his life insurance. It all painted a clear and unforgiving picture. Years spent reading people on job sites hadn't prepared him for this kind of duplicity at home. For the first time since waking in the hospital, Rob allowed himself to weep quietly, the tears running down into his graying hair. Everything in his life needed to change, starting now. Tomorrow he would call his lawyer. Tonight he would gather his strength. If Carol wanted a fight, she was going to get one. "I think there's someone else," Rob continued, his voice quieter now. He explained about Carol's new clothes, her late nights, her eagerness for him to work longer hours. "She's been encouraging me to keep my focus on the company, always suggesting I take on more projects even after the heart attack. She wants me out of the house, out of her way." Tommy let out a low whistle. "Unbelievable. Do you want me to hire someone to follow her? I know a guy who does that kind of thing, clean, discreet." Rob shook his head. "Not yet. Everything I need I can get through old-fashioned observation. I want you to stay close, though. Keep an eye on the house. If anything happens to me, you call David and Emma right away, and our lawyer. Don't let Carol get ahead on anything." Tommy nodded, eyes fierce with determination. "You got it, Rob. I'll watch her like a hawk. And don't worry about the company. I'll swing by the sites if you need a trusted face present." "Thanks, Tommy. I always knew I could count on you, even if you make life complicated sometimes." Tommy grinned ruefully. "That's what brothers are for, eh? Just hang in there. We'll get through this." Rob managed a faint smile. For the first time since the heart attack, a sliver of hope cut through the fear. With Tommy on his side, he might just have a fighting chance. Now the game was to play weaker than he was, to let Carol's plot unravel on its own. David nodded immediately. "Of course, Dad. I'll spend more time at the house, make sure she's okay. If there's anything specific you want me to look out for..." Rob managed a tired smile. "Just keep your eyes open, that's all. If you see anything strange, let me know. And don't tell your sister about this just yet. I don't want her to worry. We'll handle things for now." "Understood," David replied, gripping his father's hand. "We'll get through this together, Dad. I promise." Instructional calls. Rob squeezed his son's hand, grateful for the reassurance. For all the battles he'd faced in business and in life, nothing compared to protecting his family from within. As David left, Rob felt a surge of resolve. He wasn't just fighting for his own survival, he was fighting for everything he'd built and everyone he loved. Tomorrow, he would go home, and the real test would begin. He forced himself to nod slowly, as if considering her words through a haze of fatigue. "That's thoughtful of him," Rob said, keeping his tone neutral. Carol smiled thinly, tucking a blanket around his legs. "You need to focus on getting well, Rob. Derek said he's got the experience and resources to make sure nothing falls behind schedule. Just let him handle things. Everyone wants what's best for you." Rob watched her carefully, catching the faint glint of triumph in her eyes. She thought the trap was set, the path clear for her and Derek. "I'll think about it," he murmured, letting his eyelids droop. "But I want to stay in touch with Maria and the team, just in case." She patted his shoulder, her touch just a little too firm. "Of course, but only if you feel up to it. No stress, remember? The doctor was very clear." Rob nodded, feigning weakness, letting her believe she'd won another round. Inside, though, his mind raced with calculations and plans. That night, in the quiet of his room, old family photographs staring down from the walls, Rob began laying the groundwork for his own counterattack. He'd learned all his life that nothing was ever as it seemed, and victory belonged to those with the patience to wait, observe, and strike when the time was right. This was war now, and he intended to win. Rob played along, thanking her for her care and letting her select a film. He feigned tiredness 20 minutes in, allowing his eyelids to droop as she nestled beside him on the sofa, her phone never far from her reach. She absent-mindedly scrolled through messages while occasionally glancing at Rob, as if checking whether he might notice something he wasn't meant to see. By late afternoon, Carol seemed more relaxed than he'd seen her in weeks. While she busied herself in the kitchen, Rob discreetly texted Tommy. "She's dropping her guard. Keep the pressure on. Watch for any contact with Derek tonight." He then called Maria on his office line upstairs, his voice a forced whisper. "Maria, I need you to start compiling documentation on the Morrison contracts. All communications between Carol and Derek that went through the office email. Discreetly. Don't breathe a word of this to anyone." Maria, loyal and efficient as ever, replied, "Of course, Mr. Sullivan. I'll get started and send updates to your personal email only. Do you need anything else?" "Not for now. Just be careful. I trust you." "Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Take care." After hanging up, Rob steadied himself against his desk, feeling the gravity of every decision. Carol thought she was closing in on her victory, but she'd underestimated his resilience. Tonight he would watch. Tonight he would gather the evidence he needed. The performance was almost over, and Rob was more than ready for the final act. How she frequently stepped outside to take calls, always returning with a faint smile. How she seemed to be counting down the hours until Monday, her eyes gleaming with a triumph she couldn't quite conceal. Rob played his part, feigning weakness and gratitude for her attentions. He let her fuss over him, all the while observing her every move. He knew she was close to making a mistake, and when she did, he would be ready. Sunday passed in a blur of forced rest and careful observation. Carol's behavior grew more erratic, her excitement barely contained. She paced the house, her phone never far from her side, and frequently stepped outside for whispered conversations. Rob could almost see the gears turning in her mind, the plans falling into place. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the living room, Carol's phone rang again. She answered it, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, everything is set. He's weaker than ever. Tomorrow, it will all be over. I can't wait to see the look on his face when he realizes he's lost everything." Rob's heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his expression neutral. He had the evidence he needed, and now he would strike. Tomorrow, the game would change, and Carol would finally understand the true depth of her mistake. "I do," Carol replied, trying to sound earnest. "Derek can help us out of this bind, Rob. At least talk to him and see what he suggests. You have nothing to lose." Rob sipped his coffee, eyes cool over the rim. "I'll think about it. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should let someone else handle things while I recover." She smiled, but tension lingered at the corners of her mouth. "It's just a conversation, Rob. You need to focus on getting stronger." He reached for her hand across the counter. "I appreciate how much you're worrying, Carol. Really, let's see how today goes. Maybe I'll call Derek, maybe I'll call the bank. I can't just let everything slip away." She gave his hand a gentle squeeze and excused herself, heading upstairs, phone in hand. As she left, Rob watched the lines in her posture, noting the briskness in her step, the anticipation. She was ready for phase 2, certain victory was close. Rob picked up his own phone as soon as she was out of sight. First, he called Tommy. "Did you see anything else last night?" "Yeah," Tommy replied. "She was with Morrison all right. Didn't leave his place till almost 3. "That's all I needed to know," Rob said, his voice steely. "Stay by your phone. I'll call you if I need backup." By the time Carol returned downstairs, dressed carefully and tension erased from her features, Rob was at the dining table, papers spread before him. The trap was set. It was only a matter of time now before Carol and Derek stepped right into it. Rob's jaw tightened, a simmering fury trying to break through his practiced calm. "Did you give him anything, Tommy? Anything real?" Tommy shook his head, shame written in every crease of his face. "I tried to stall Rob. I told him a few minor things, stuff he could have found out on his own, but nothing major, nothing that would actually hurt the company, I swear. I thought I could buy myself some time. I'm so sorry, Rob." Rob leaned back, drawing a slow breath. The betrayal stung, but he could see the desperation behind Tommy's choices. "You should have come to me." "I know," Tommy mumbled, looking at the table, his hands trembling around his coffee cup. "I'm in over my head. But Rob, I haven't told him anything that he can't already figure out from public records. I promise." Rob nodded, more resolute than angry. "Listen to me, Tommy. You stay close to Morrison, but from now on, you tell me everything. Every word, every meeting. No more lies. You're going to help me turn the tables on him." Tommy swallowed hard, but he nodded. "You got it, Rob. I owe you. I'm with you all the way on this." Rob stood. "We're going to walk into that meeting at Morrison's office today, but we'll be ready. Watch Carol and watch Morrison closely. Whatever they think is about to happen, I'm ending it before they even see it coming." As they left the cafe, Rob felt the weight of his brother's betrayal settle into determination. This war was bigger than business now. It was about family, pride, and survival, and Rob Sullivan had never lost a fight that truly mattered. When they arrived, Derek greeted them with a broad, rehearsed smile. "Rob, Carol, welcome. Please, come in. I'm so sorry for everything you've been through, Rob. You look, well, I hope you're feeling better." Rob nodded, suppressing a smirk. "Day by day, Derek. I'm sure you know how it is." Carol was all politeness, barely meeting Derek's eyes, but it was clear to Rob their act was just beginning. She helped Rob to a seat, fussing over him while Derek poured coffee and offered it as if they were all old friends. The meeting began with the usual small talk, but Rob watched every gesture, every glance between Derek and Carol. He could practically feel the tension in the room, the eagerness on Derek's part, the thin layer of anxiety on Carol's. "So," Derek started, taking a seat behind his imposing desk, "let's talk about Riverside. I understand things are a bit up in the air with Sullivan and Associates. I want you to know I'm here to help, whatever you need. Transitions like this can be tough, but I have the experience to see the project through." Rob let Derek's confidence hang in the air for a moment, then nodded slowly. "I appreciate that, Derek. It means a lot given, everything." Derek offered a reassuring smile. "We're all builders at heart, Rob. We help each other when we can." Out of the corner of his eye, Rob saw Carol silently watching, her breath almost held in anticipation. He leaned forward just enough to appear genuine. "Well, let's make sure everyone benefits from this transition, shall we? I don't want my family left out in the cold." Carol reached for Rob's hand on the table, squeezing it with almost theatrical concern. Derek glanced at her, a spark of something quickly flickering across his features. As the conversation continued, Rob subtly steered the discussion towards topics Carol wouldn't have anticipated: minor financial details, old construction regulations, issues with municipal contracts. Derek kept up, but Rob could tell he was getting frustrated. Carol, out of her depth, stayed painfully silent. Just before the end of the meeting, Harold Steinberg arrived, a trim man with steel-gray hair and a briefcase in hand. "Sorry to interrupt, Rob," he said cheerfully, "but we need you to sign a couple of urgent documents." Rob used the distraction to glance at Carol and Derek together. Harold placed the papers in front of Rob, who signed them with slow, deliberate purpose. "Just some final arrangements, Derek. You know how these things go." Derek nodded, masking his impatience. Rob stood. "Thank you for your time, Derek. I'll be in touch about the contract once I hear from my doctor." As they took the elevator down, Rob caught the quick, panicked rise of Carol's breathing. She knew something in the balance of power had shifted. And Rob, battered but unbroken, allowed himself the smallest, most dangerous smile. The end game had begun. "Take the night. Talk it over together. We can finalize everything tomorrow, if that works for you." Derek's tone was gentle, but Rob heard the eager undercurrent. He was ready to close this deal, to capitalize on Rob's supposed vulnerability. Rob gave him a weary, grateful look. "I appreciate your patience, Derek. A lot to think about, so, yes, let's revisit tomorrow. I'll talk to my lawyer and see what my doctor says." Carol squeezed his hand, her expression carefully composed but with a flicker of triumph in her eyes. "Thank you, Derek. We really appreciate your help." As they left the office, Rob felt Derek's gaze following them all the way to the elevator. Carol remained silent, her grip on Rob's arm just a little too tight. And in the mirrored elevator wall, Rob watched her reflection, a woman on the precipice of victory, convinced the finish line was in reach. When they got to the car, Carol finally broke the silence. "He really is offering us a lifeline, Rob. I think we should move quickly on this, before he changes his mind." Rob buckled his seatbelt slowly, looking out at the city skyline. "We'll talk it over tonight. But we have to be careful, Carol. A deal like this, if we rush, we could lose everything." She nodded, though impatience simmered just beneath the surface. Driving home in silence, Rob's thoughts were already spinning. Derek Morrison and Carol thought they'd won. But tomorrow, when all the players gathered, they were going to learn just how wrong they were. When Rob emerged from the clinic, he looked every bit the part. Pale, haunted, moving with just enough unsteadiness for anyone watching to see a man close to collapse. Dr. Hayes gave him a reassuring pat on the arm, her voice gentle but loud enough for the waiting room and anyone who might be recording to hear. Mr. Sullivan, no exertion today. Rest as much as possible. We need to adjust your medications again. I'll call you this evening to check in. Rob nodded, murmured his thanks, and walked slowly to his car. Once inside, his hands trembled, not from illness but from adrenaline. This was it. This was the day he reclaimed his life from the people who thought they could steal it. Driving home, Rob rehearsed what he needed to do. He checked his phone. Harold and Tommy had both sent coded updates. Everything was aligning perfectly. This time, the trap would catch everyone who deserved it. When Rob pulled into the driveway, Carol was waiting at the door, eyes bright and searching his face for any sign of weakness or defeat. He let his shoulders sag, let his breath catch like a man barely hanging on. She wrapped him in a gentle hug. "Bad news?" she asked, her tone soaked in mock sympathy. Rob managed a shaky nod. "Dr. Hayes is concerned. She says another attack could happen at any time. I'm supposed to stay in bed, keep things as calm as possible." "Of course, honey," Carol whispered, already calculating her next move. "Why don't you rest a while? I'll take care of everything." He smiled at her with what little strength he could muster. "Thank you. I knew I could count on you." Upstairs, as he settled into bed, Rob listened for Carol's footsteps as she left the room. He heard her walk away. Then, not 5 minutes later, the low murmur of her voice on the phone in the garden. Everything was happening exactly as he planned. By tonight, everything would be decided, and for the first time in weeks, Rob felt at peace. Rob shook his head gently, offering her a thin, weary smile. It's hard. When everything happens all at once, you start doubting yourself, that's all." Carol squeezed his arm. "You're exhausted. You need to rest before tomorrow. I'll take care of everything tonight, okay?" He nodded, pretending to appreciate her concern. "All right, I'll try to get some sleep." As she rose to leave the room, Rob caught the brief flicker of anticipation in her eyes, the kind that spoke of victory so close she could almost taste it. He waited until she'd gone upstairs before pulling out his phone and texting Tommy, "Be ready, tomorrow, noon, Morrison's office. Everything comes out." Then Rob sat quietly in the darkened room, gathering himself for the battle ahead. Tonight he would rest, but tomorrow, when all the pieces finally came together, Carol and Derek would see just how sharp the man behind the mask could truly be. Rob took a step closer, his voice dropping to a low growl. "And you just happen to have a wife who's been feeding you every detail of my life, my business, my health. You think I'm that stupid, Derek? You think I wouldn't notice the way you two look at each other, the way you've been planning this together?" Derek's face flushed, a mix of anger and panic. "You're imagining things, Rob. Carol and we've been friends for years. She's just trying to help." Carol, still frozen by the fireplace, found her voice. "Rob, you're wrong. Derek and we were just trying to help you. You've been so stressed, so sick. We thought this would be best for everyone." Rob's eyes narrowed as he turned to her. "Best for everyone? Or best for you and your new boyfriend? You think I didn't see the way you've been acting, the way you've been planning? You think I didn't notice the way you've been counting down the days until you could get rid of me?" Carol's eyes widened in shock, but Rob saw the flicker of guilt in her expression. "Rob, that's not true. I love you. I've always loved you." "Love?" Rob scoffed. "You don't know the meaning of the word, Carol. You've been planning my death, and you think I'm going to believe you love me? You think I'm that stupid?" Derek tried to intervene, his voice shaking. "Rob, you need to calm down. You're not well. You're not thinking straight." Rob's gaze snapped to Derek, his voice cold and deadly. "I'm thinking just fine, Derek, and I'm done playing your games. I know everything. I know about your gambling debts, Tommy. I know about your plans to take over my company. I know about your little meetings with my wife. And I know about your plans for tomorrow." Derek's face paled, but he tried to bluff his way through. I don't know what you're talking about, Rob. You're delusional. Rob smiled, a cold, dangerous smile. Delusional? Let's see what the police think. I have a friend, Detective Ray Kowalski. He's been very interested in your activities, Derek. He's been listening to every word you've said, every plan you've made, and he's got enough evidence to put you away for a very long time. Carol's face drained of color. Rob, you can't do this. You can't. Can't what? Rob interrupted, his voice rising. Can't expose your lies? Can't show the world what kind of people you really are? Can't protect my family from the likes of you? You're wrong, Carol. I can do all of those things. And I will. Rob turned to Derek, his voice steady and calm. Tomorrow at noon we'll be at your office. You, me, Carol, and my lawyer. We'll sign the papers, and then we'll call the police. And Derek, if you try anything, if you even think about trying to hurt my family, you'll regret it. You understand me? Derek nodded, his face a mask of defeat. I understand, Rob. I won't do anything, I swear. Rob's gaze shifted to Carol, his voice softening just a fraction. And you, Carol, you're going to sign the papers, and then you're going to leave. You're going to leave my house, my company, and my life, and you're never going to come back. Do you understand me? Carol's eyes filled with tears, but Rob saw the anger and frustration beneath the surface. I understand, Rob. I'll do whatever you want. Rob nodded, satisfied. Good. Then let's get this over with, tomorrow at noon. And Carol, Derek, don't even think about trying to run. I'll find you, and I'll make sure you pay for everything you've done. With that, Rob turned and walked out of the house, leaving Carol and Derek to stare at each other in stunned silence. As he drove away, Rob felt a sense of relief and satisfaction. The game was over, and he had won. Tomorrow, he would reclaim his life, his family, and his company. And he would make sure that Carol and Derek paid for their betrayal. He turned back to Carol, his voice cold and unyielding. You, on the other hand, are staying right here. We have a lot to discuss. Carol's eyes flashed with anger and desperation. You can't do this, Rob. You can't just... Can't I? Rob interrupted, his voice rising. Can't I expose your lies? Can't I show the world what kind of person you really are? Can't I protect my family from the likes of you? You're wrong, Carol. I can do all of those things, and I will. Carol's face contorted with a mix of fear and rage. You think you've won, Rob? You think you've outsmarted me? You think you've outsmarted us? You're a fool if you think this is over. You're a fool if you think I'll just let you. Let me what? Rob cut her off, his voice deadly calm. Let me expose your betrayal? Let me protect my family? Let me ensure that you and Derek get what you deserve? You're right, Carol. I am a fool. I was a fool to ever trust you. I was a fool to ever love you. But I'm not a fool anymore. And I'm not going to let you or Derek get away with what you've done. Carol's eyes widened in shock as Rob pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Detective Kowalski, it's Rob Sullivan. I need you to come to Derek Morrison's house. I have 2 people here who need to have a long conversation with you. As he hung up, Carol's face paled. Rob, you can't. Can't what? Rob interrupted, his voice cold. Can't call the police? Can't turn you in for your crimes? Can't make sure that you and Derek pay for what you've done? You're wrong, Carol. I can do all of those things. And I will. Just then, the sound of police sirens filled the air, growing louder as they approached the house. Carol's face drained of color, and she took a step back, her eyes wide with terror. It's over, Carol, Rob said softly. It's finally over. And tomorrow when we sign those papers, you're going to leave my life forever. And you're never going to come back. As the police burst through the front door, Rob stood tall and unyielding, his eyes fixed on Carol. He had won. He had outsmarted them both, and he would make sure that justice was served. Better than I expected, Rob replied, gesturing for the detective to sit. The house feels different, lighter. Kowalski nodded, taking a seat. That's often how it goes. When the truth comes out, it can feel like a weight lifted. But it's also just the beginning. You've got a long road ahead, Rob. The legal process, the media attention, the fallout with your kids. It's not going to be easy. Rob leaned back in his chair, his expression resolute. I know, but I'm ready for it. I've been ready for a long time. I just needed the right moment to strike. Kowalski pulled out a notepad, flipping through his notes. We've got enough to hold Carol and Morrison for a while. The recordings, the financial documents, the witness statements, it's all there. But we need your testimony to seal the deal. Are you prepared to do that? Rob nodded without hesitation. Absolutely. I want them to pay for what they did. I want them to understand that they can't get away with betrayal and murder. Kowalski made a note, then looked up at Rob. There's something else. We found evidence that Morrison had been working with someone else, someone higher up in the construction industry, someone who's been trying to take down Sullivan and Associates for years. Rob's eyebrows raised. Who? Kowalski hesitated, then said, We're not sure yet, but we think it might be someone close to you, someone you trust. Rob's mind raced, but he kept his expression neutral. I'll help in any way I can. Just tell me what you need. Kowalski nodded, satisfied. We'll be in touch. For now, just focus on taking care of yourself and your family. The legal process will take time, but we'll make sure justice is served. As Kowalski left, Rob sat alone in his study, the weight of the past week settling over him. He had won the battle, but the war was far from over. He knew that there were still enemies out there, still threats to his family and his business. But he was ready. He had proven that he could outsmart them, that he could protect what mattered most, and he would do it again, if necessary. Ray shook his head. She covered her tracks well, Rob, but not well enough. The DA thinks they have a solid case for attempted murder and fraud, and with Derek flipping, Carol's not going to be able to claim ignorance or innocence. Rob nodded, his expression impassive. I figured she'd try to blame someone else when it all fell apart. She never could take responsibility for anything. Ray gave a sympathetic grunt. She's up against a wall and not many ways out. What she did went far beyond being unhappy or scared. The intent is clear, and the evidence is airtight. The DA says your cooperation and those recordings sealed it. For a moment, the room was quiet. Rob stared out the window, processing everything. Finally, he said, I want David and Emma kept out of it as much as possible. They're victims, too, in their own way. They haven't done anything wrong. Ray nodded. We'll do our best. I'll make sure the DA understands. This is about holding Carol and Derek accountable, not hurting your kids any more than they've already been hurt. Rob offered a weary smile. Thank you, Ray. I can't tell you how much I appreciate everything you've done. Ray stood and gave Rob a steady look. Take care of yourself, Sullivan. You survived the worst. Now's your chance to start over. Don't waste it. After Ray left, Rob sat in the quiet study, the storm outside finally passing. For the first time in ages, he believed rebuilding was possible. The future stretched uncertain and wide before him. But he'd reclaimed his home, his family's name, and most importantly, his peace. The fortress Rob Sullivan built had survived, a little battered, but stronger than ever. She wasn't always like this, Rob said gently, reaching over to take Emma's hand. People change. Sometimes the person you thought you knew slowly turns into someone else, and you don't see it happening until it's too late. Your mother's choices were her own. None of what she did is your fault, or David's. Emma blinked back tears, her jaw set in a familiar, stubborn line. I just don't get it. Didn't she love us? Didn't she love you? Rob swallowed, pain flashing across his features. For a long time, I believe she did. Or maybe she just loved the life we built together, the comfort, the security. But somewhere along the way, something inside her changed. She let bitterness and ambition take over, and then it became about what she wanted, no matter who it hurt. Emma nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm sorry, Dad. For everything. There's nothing for you to be sorry about, Rob said warmly. Just promise me you won't let this define you. We're Sullivans. We rebuild. We move forward. Emma looked at him, a spark of determination returning to her eyes. I promise, Dad. They sat together in silence, finding comfort in each other's presence. Outside, the evening deepened, and in the newly quiet house, hope flickered, fragile but real, lighting the first steps toward a new beginning for the Sullivan family. Ray's voice was immediately alert. "What have you got, Rob?" Rob took a steadying breath. "Carol's cellmate called me. Said Carol wants me to know Tommy wasn't in gambling debt at all. It was all a lie. Morrison paid Tommy to sabotage my company from the inside for over a year. He orchestrated permit issues, staged delays, cost us contracts. Every crisis we had, Tommy had a hand in it. And he kept feeding me information all along, pretending to be on my side." There was a stunned silence. Ray finally replied, "That explains a lot. I'll get my team on it right away. We'll pull Tommy's financial records, track any payments, and talk to Morrison again, see if he'll confirm it to cut his own sentence. We'll get to the bottom of this, Rob. I promise." "Thanks, Ray," Rob said grimly. "This changes everything. If Tommy did what Carol says, I'll make sure he pays for it too. You just focus on your family right now. We'll handle the rest." When the call ended, Rob sat in the dark, the betrayal settling over him like a physical weight. He'd survived a wife's treachery and a rival's schemes, but the wounds of a brother's deceit cut deeper than anything else. But as before, Rob Sullivan would not be undone. The past would not define him, the truth would, and he would seek it out no matter how painful the cost. Tomorrow would bring new reckonings, but tonight he allowed himself a moment to grieve and let go. And somewhere in the shadows of his battered home, Rob drew strength for what was still to come, determined the Sullivan legacy would not end in betrayal, but in hard-won, honest survival. Tommy nodded, shame etched deeply into his face. "He paid me to cause delays, to create problems that would force you to settle or walk away from contracts. I never wanted it to go this far, Rob, I swear. But Derek, he threatened me. He said if I didn't do what he wanted, he'd cut off the payments, and Lisa would be left with nothing. I was desperate. I didn't see any other way." Rob's voice was cold, unyielding. "You should have come to me, Tommy. I would have helped Lisa. You didn't have to betray your own family." Tommy looked up, tears in his eyes. "I know, Rob, I know. But I was scared, and I was weak, and I let Derek Morrison take advantage of me. I'm so sorry, Rob, I'm so sorry." Rob stood, his expression hard. "Sorry isn't good enough, Tommy. You've hurt this family, you've hurt our business, and you've hurt me. And now, you're going to have to face the consequences." Tommy's eyes widened in panic. "What do you mean? Rob, please, I can't go to jail. Lisa needs me. She needs the money for her treatments." Rob's voice was steady and calm. "That's not my problem anymore, Tommy. You made your choice, and now you're going to have to live with it. Detective Kowalski is waiting outside. He's going to take you in for questioning. And Tommy, if you try to run, if you try to hide, I will find you. And I will make sure you pay for every single thing you've done." Tommy's face crumpled and he started to sob. "Rob, please, don't do this. I'm your brother. I'm family." Rob's expression didn't change. "Family doesn't betray family, Tommy. And you did. You chose money over loyalty, and now you're going to have to face the music." As Rob turned to leave, Tommy called after him, his voice desperate. "Rob, wait. Please. I'll do anything. I'll pay you back every penny. I'll work for free for the rest of my life. Just don't turn me in." Rob paused at the door, his back to Tommy. "It's too late for that, Tommy. You should have thought about that before you started working with Derek Morrison. You should have thought about that before you started sabotaging my business, and you should have thought about that before you started lying to my face." With that, Rob walked out of the apartment, leaving Tommy to his tears and his regrets. As he stepped out into the cold rain, Rob felt a sense of finality. The betrayals were over, the lies were exposed, and the truth was out. And now it was time for justice. Rob's gaze was steely but not unkind. Lisa deserves better than this, Tommy. Maybe now she'll get the help she really needs. I tried to give you a second chance. You threw it away. Tommy's shoulders sagged as the officers guided him out of the apartment, their footsteps harsh against the faded linoleum. The sorrow in his brother's eyes was the final wound, a wound no amount of money, apologies, or time would heal. As Detective Kowalski lingered a moment, he laid a heavy hand on Rob's shoulder. This was the only way, Rob. Sometimes, blood isn't enough. Rob nodded, a hollow ache echoing deep in his chest. I know, Ray, but it's all gone now. All of it. Ray offered a brief nod and followed the others out the door, leaving Rob alone amid the detritus of a life wasted and a bond broken beyond repair. Enter his brother's battered living room. Rob felt both Leatherender's attempt, lighter and infinitely more weary. But as the rain continued to fall on South Boston, he also knew the Sullivan legacy, strained and scarred, was firmly back in his own hands. The time for rebuilding would come soon enough. For now, with the ghosts of betrayal behind him, Rob stepped out into the sharp chill of morning and began the slow, steady walk back toward home and toward the honest life he still intended to build. Rob looked at his son and daughter, his voice steady but infused with hard-won wisdom. We survived, he said quietly. This wasn't about winning. It was about protecting what matters, about doing the right thing, even when it costs us. We lost a lot, but we learned more. The Sullivan name still stands. Your futures, our company, everything we've built together. It's ours to shape now. No more secrets, no more lies. Emma nodded, her eyes wet but determined. We'll rebuild it together, Dad. We can make something better out of all this pain. David managed a hopeful smile, the sharp edge of betrayal softened by loyalty and love. You can count on us, Dad. Sullivan and Associates is going to be stronger than ever. Rob felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with money or contracts, but with family, resilience, and the hard, honest work that would always set them apart. As the fading afternoon sun lit the office with a golden glow, Rob knew the true legacy he was passing on. Strength in the face of adversity, courage in the face of betrayal, and the unwavering belief that in the end, what truly matters is what you build for those you love. Together, the Sullivans faced a future that was finally, unmistakably, their own. For Rob, the sight held a grim kind of satisfaction. Not just victory over a rival, but proof that justice and persistence still mattered in a world ruled by betrayal and ambition. The Sullivan name would now be on the door, restored and respected, where trust had once been shattered. The company auction had been swift and almost anticlimactic. With Morrison in prison and his empire gutted by scandal and debt, Sullivan and Associates was able to acquire key contracts and assets, securing their place as the region's top construction firm once more. The press followed every move, headlines shifting from scandal to redemption. David had stepped into a leadership role with a steadiness and maturity that surprised even Rob, while Emma, though carrying scars from her mother's betrayal, had found her calling in advocating for corporate ethics and legal reforms. Together, they were reshaping not just the company, but the culture around them, one where loyalty meant something and every mistake became a lesson. Tommy, convicted and sentenced, had written only one letter from prison, a letter Rob kept in a locked drawer, unread, not ready yet for forgiveness or closure. On some nights, alone in the new house he'd chosen for fresh beginnings, Rob would look through old photographs, his parents, his children, even some with Carol and Tommy, and remember that the past, with all its heartbreak, had forged the unbreakable spirit he now passed on. He knew the price of loyalty. He knew how easily trust could be broken, and how very hard it was to repair. But as the new Sullivan and Associates sign was polished above the doors and his children stood by his side, Rob allowed himself a rare smile. They had survived. They had rebuilt. And this time, the foundation of everything they'd built was stronger than steel, hard-won, tested, and absolutely true. "She'll never survive a trial, Dad," Emma continued, her voice steady. "The evidence is overwhelming, and the press coverage would tear her and us apart all over again. If she cooperates, testifies against Morrison, and forfeits everything, we can put this behind us sooner. We have a chance to move on." David nodded in agreement. "It's the cleanest way out. She gets punished, but we don't have to keep reliving it in court for the next year. Let her go quietly if she's willing to take the deal." Rob studied his children. How steady they had become beneath all the loss. How determined. He saw the resilience and hard wisdom in his daughter's eyes, the strength in his son's voice. "Then that's what we'll support," Rob said, his voice strong and clear. "We won't fight it. We rebuild from here. We do things right, together." Emma smiled, relief softening her features. "I'm glad, Dad." That night, as dinner ended and laughter finally rose in their new home, Rob felt something shift inside him. There would always be shadows, but there would also always be light. For all they'd lost, for all they'd endured, the Sullivans had found their way, not to a perfect ending, but to true strength and a second chance. He raised his glass. To family, to lessons learned, to what comes next. They clinked their glasses, the sound ringing bright and hopeful in a house built on honesty, respect, and the unbreakable bonds of those who choose, again and again, to stand together, no matter the storm. Inside, Tommy's shaky scrawl filled a single page. "Rob, if you're reading this, you know I couldn't see a way out anymore. I'm sorry, truly sorry. There aren't words enough for everything I owe you and everything I destroyed. I thought I was making choices for Lisa, but in the end, I ruined what really mattered. You warned me so many times, but I didn't listen. You were always the strong one, the one who built things, real things, lasting things. All I ever managed to build was trouble. I hope you can forgive me one day, though I know I don't deserve it. Tell David and Emma I'm sorry for what I took from them, what I took from you. Tell them family should have been everything. Tell them to hold on to you. You're better than I ever was. I'm grateful you cared for Lisa, even if you never told me. I know it was you. Maybe, if there's something after this, I'll finally get it right. Goodbye, Rob. Protect the Sullivans. Your brother, Tommy." Rob folded the letter carefully, his hands trembling. There was nothing more to say. No words could undo the past or mend the wounds Tommy had left behind. But as Rob looked down at his brother for the last time, some of the bitterness eased. He felt sorrow, yes, but also acceptance, a closing of the circle they had both drawn with choices, regrets, and, ultimately, love. He left the morgue in the soft gray light of dawn, carrying a letter and a new understanding of what forgiveness truly meant. Maybe, in some other life, they'd have gotten it right. Here, Rob was left with a legacy to protect and a future still unwritten, forged from pain, resilience, and the unbreakable strength of family. The end. He waited as the phone rang, his mind heavy with thoughts of forgiveness and the cost of armor built over a lifetime. When Emma answered, her voice was quiet but clear. "Hi, Dad." "Hey, Em. I wanted to let you know about Uncle Tommy's funeral. It'll be small, just us. If you and David want to come. No press, no spectacle." There was a brief silence before Emma replied, "I'd like that. I think David would too. Uncle Tommy made terrible choices, but he was still family." Rob felt something unwind inside him, a tension easing. Yeah, he was. He hesitated, searching for words that wouldn't come off as weakness. "Listen, Emma. Be careful about how much you harden your heart. I've spent my life building walls, thinking that was the only way to keep us safe. But sometimes forgiveness matters, maybe even more than winning." Emma's voice was soft but sure. "I know, Dad. I've been thinking about that too." "Good," Rob said, relief flooding through him. "See you tomorrow." As he hung up, Rob looked at the empty glass beside him, the photograph of two young brothers, and the city skyline beyond the window. He realized the legacy he hoped to leave for his children wasn't just about strength, or power, or even survival. It was about the courage to heal. Trust, once broken, would never be easy to rebuild. But with every new sunrise, it was worth trying. For the first time in a long while, Rob allowed himself hope for the future. A future not built on suspicion, but on the hard, honest work of making things right, one choice at a time. Next time, with a new tale. Rob Sullivan had won the war for his legacy, his family name, and his business. Yet as the seasons changed outside his window, and the city continued on beneath him, he understood the true burden of his victory. Strength and resilience had carried him through a storm of betrayal, but at a cost that would echo through the rest of his days. The Sullivan family would endure, wiser, tougher, and forever changed. In the end, Rob realized that survival was not always about being unbreakable, but about carrying the scars with dignity and never letting go of hope for something better, even when surrounded by loss. And so, alone in the quiet of his fortress, Rob Sullivan glanced at a photo of two grinning boys with sore knuckles and dreams as high as the trees, holding on to the memory of the love that shaped him and the lessons he would pass on. The end.